Most people believe bone strength starts with calcium. If you're over 60, you're usually told your bones either get enough minerals or they don't. But here's the mini shock most people never hear. Minerals don't decide whether bones stay strong. They respond to something that happens before them. And if that earlier step is missing, no amount of calcium can fix the problem later, no matter how consistent you've been. That belief alone helps explain why so many older adults keep losing bone strength while doing everything they were told was right. Taking calcium supplements. Eating what they believe is a bone-healthy diet. Staying active, walking daily, even lifting light weights, and yet still feeling weaker, stiffer, or less stable than expected. This is the first wrong assumption to break. Bone loss after 60 is rarely about missing minerals. It's about missing signals. And here's the uncomfortable curiosity to hold on to. What if your body has had the nutrients all along, but never received the instruction to use them? Bones are not solid blocks of stone. They are living tissue that constantly listens, adjusts, and adapts. Every day, your bones respond to internal messages that tell them whether to rebuild, maintain, or conserve. After 60, this listening process changes in a critical way. Bones don't automatically rebuild just because nutrients are present. They wait for a specific internal message that says rebuilding is safe and worthwhile. When that message doesn't arrive, bones quietly shift into survival mode instead of repair mode. And this is the hidden risk most people overlook. Bones can look stable for years while becoming brittle underneath, without pain, warning, or obvious symptoms. That's why fractures so often seem to come out of nowhere. Not after major falls or dramatic accidents, but during normal life, standing up from a chair, twisting to reach something, stepping the wrong way. The danger isn't always low calcium or even low bone density on paper. It's a bone structure that never formed the right foundation, or one that slowly weakened over time without being noticed. So here's a question many people have never been asked. What if your bones aren't weak, but stiff and fragile from the inside out? Research in bone biology and aging shows that the earliest breakdown in bone health after 60 doesn't start with minerals at all. It starts with collagen, the flexible internal framework that absorbs shock and gives bones resilience. Collagen allows bones to bend slightly instead of cracking under pressure. Without this framework, hardness becomes a liability. Bones may look dense on scans, yet fail under everyday stress. And this creates a quiet trap. People focus harder on supplements, higher doses, and stronger interventions, while the real problem keeps growing underneath. Here's the mistake many people make. They assume bone health is about adding more calcium, more protein, more supplements, more effort. But aging bones don't respond to force. They respond to clear biological signals, signals that say build, not just survive. Miss that window, and minerals never lock in the way they should. This is why some people do everything right for years and still see no improvement. The materials arrive, but the message never does. There's another risk most people don't realize. When bones stay in survival mode too long, they become efficient at conserving but inefficient at rebuilding. Stiffness increases, recovery slows, balance feels less reliable, and fear of movement quietly grows. None of this feels dramatic at first. It just feels like getting older. But in reality, it's often a signaling problem, not an age problem. So hold on to this curiosity as we move forward. What if bone health after 60 isn't about what you add, but about what message you send first? What if certain everyday foods quietly activate collagen repair and natural bone rebuilding, while others arrive too late to make a real difference? And what if the order you use them matters more than the amount? Once you understand that bones are listening, and that order matters, bone health stops feeling random. It stops feeling like guesswork or bad luck. It becomes logical, predictable, and actionable. Instead of asking, "Why isn't this working for me?" you start asking a better question. Am I sending the right signal at the right time? Now we're moving into the practical part. We're about to count down the bone-building foods that support collagen for bones and send these early repair signals, starting with the gentlest and moving step by step toward the one bones recognize most clearly after 60. Stay with me, because this is where many people get it wrong. If you miss the first step, the rest won't work the way you expect. And once you see why, you'll never look at bone health after 60 the same way again. Let's begin the countdown. Now let's count this down, faster, clearer, and with real purpose. We're starting with foods that prepare the collagen framework your bones depend on, then moving step by step toward the point where bone rebuilding after 60 finally becomes noticeable and reliable. Pay close attention to the order, because this is where most people make a critical mistake. They stop too early, feel nothing dramatic, and assume natural bone repair doesn't work. And here's the key idea most people never hear. Bones don't respond to more first. They respond to readiness. Miss this, and everything that follows feels disappointing, even when the science is solid. This is why bone health after 60 often feels confusing and frustrating. People add calcium, protein, collagen powders, supplements, and still feel stuck. Not because those tools are useless, but because the internal structure wasn't ready to receive them. Bones are selective as we age. They don't rebuild just because nutrients are present. They rebuild when the internal environment is prepared in the right sequence. Keep that in mind as we start, because each step here prepares the next one. Skip a step, rush the order, or stop at the wrong place, and progress quietly. Stalls without warning. So before we even name the first food, lock this in. Order is not optional. Bone density support after 60 is not about intensity, extremes, or doing more. It's about timing, signaling, and sequence. That's the difference between people who see steady improvement and people who feel like they're doing everything right but getting nowhere. 5. Strawberries, the foundation. Prep. Strawberries don't build bones overnight, and that's exactly why they belong at the start of this countdown. Their role is preparation, not repair. As we age, low-grade oxidative stress quietly damages collagen fibers before bone rebuilding even has a chance to begin. This damage doesn't hurt, it doesn't show up on scans, but it weakens the flexible framework bones rely on later. Strawberries help calm that internal noise by supplying vitamin C alongside protective plant compounds that reduce oxidative stress in connective tissue. In simple terms, they help clear background interference so collagen for bones can form more reliably later on. A small bowl a few times per week, eaten with a meal, is enough to support this first signal without overwhelming blood sugar. If you're over 60 and managing diabetes or using glucose-lowering medications, portion size matters more than frequency. This stage won't feel dramatic, and that's the trap. Many people skip it because they feel nothing happening. But here's the truth. Most people learn too late. When preparation is missing, later steps feel weaker, inconsistent, or short-lived, even when you're doing everything else right. This is where bone repair quietly fails before it ever starts. Think of this step like preparing soil before planting. You don't see results immediately, but without it, nothing that follows can take hold. That's why strawberries matter here, even though they don't feel powerful. 4. Red bell peppers, the false finish line. Red bell peppers feel powerful, and that's exactly why many people stop here and think they've solved the problem. They deliver a concentrated dose of vitamin C that supports collagen formation, helping loose fibers begin organizing into a stronger internal framework. On the surface, this can feel like real progress, less stiffness, more confidence, the sense that you're finally covered when it comes to natural bone strength. Lightly cooking peppers improves absorption and reduces digestive strain, which becomes more important after 60. Smaller servings spread across the week are a safer approach if you're sensitive to nightshades or taking medications that irritate the stomach. But here's the warning that protects people from getting stuck. Most people stop here, and that's a mistake. This stage creates misleading confidence. The framework looks better, but it's not stable enough yet to support long-term bone strength or proper mineral lock-in. This is the most deceptive point in the process. The body feels improved just enough to convince people they're finished. But the structure is still vulnerable. Collagen fibers are forming, but they're not yet coordinated or fully usable. That's why so many older adults say, "I tried bone-building foods and nothing changed," without realizing they stopped at the exact place where progress stalls most often. And this is why order matters more than effort. Preparation without direction goes nowhere. Organization without alignment doesn't hold. Which brings us to the turning point. Because the next step is where bone repair stops feeling like hope and starts feeling like direction. 3. Kiwi, the turning point. Most people misread. This is where the countdown quietly splits in two, and where many people over 60 make the wrong decision without realizing it. Up to this point, you've been preparing the collagen framework and organizing the internal structure your bones depend on. Kiwi is where direction finally matters. It doesn't strengthen bones by adding more force, more calcium, or more nutrients. Instead, it corrects how your body uses what's already there. And that distinction is critical for bone health after 60, because at this age, the body doesn't just need ingredients, it needs coordination. Here's what most older adults don't realize. By the time you're over 60, you usually already have many of the raw materials for repair circulating in your body. Amino acids from food, vitamin C from meals, minerals from diet or supplements. The problem is not that nothing is available. The problem is timing, delivery, efficiency. Those materials can be scattered, poorly aligned, and used in the wrong rhythm. That's why so many people say they tried everything and still feel fragile. They weren't missing effort, they were missing alignment. Kiwi functions like a biological traffic controller. It activates enzymatic pathways involved in collagen repair, signals that help your body stop wasting repair attempts and start rebuilding with intention. This is where collagen for bones begins behaving differently. Instead of fibers forming in a loose, inconsistent pattern, the process becomes more organized. Signals stop colliding and start lining up. Repair shifts from guesswork into direction, and this is the first time the process stops feeling like random luck and starts feeling like something you can actually influence. Now here's the mistake that quietly ruins progress. Many people treat kiwi like just another healthy fruit, something nice to add, but not something that changes the process. They eat it occasionally. They eat it inconsistently. They eat it out of order. Then they assume the job is done because they included it. But this is not a finish line. This is a transition point. This is the bridge between preparation and real rebuilding. Skip it, rush it, or treat it casually, and everything that follows loses power. And here's the hard truth behind why so many adults over 60 say, "I tried natural bone-building foods, and nothing changed." The ingredients were there. The effort was there. Even the intent was there. But the order was wrong, and the signal never fully aligned. When alignment is missing, the body doesn't move forward. It reverts to maintenance mode because mixed signals feel unsafe. That's the risk most people miss. When this step is inconsistent, your body receives contradictory instructions. One day it's told to calm inflammation and organize collagen. The next day it's pushed toward activation and mineral intake without proper coordination. Over time, your body does what it's designed to do when it senses confusion. It conserves. It protects. It maintains. Progress stalls, not because bone rebuilding after 60 is impossible, but because the message keeps changing. This is why trying harder often backfires. More effort can't overcome mixed instructions. For many people over 60, this is the first moment bone repair stops feeling random. Movement begins to feel slightly more forgiving. Recovery feels steadier instead of unpredictable. Not dramatic, but directional. That's the key word here, direction. Because once direction is established, the body can finally build without constant interruption. One kiwi earlier in the day, a few times per week, is enough to support this shift when used consistently. More is not better. Overdoing it doesn't speed results, it blurs the signal. And if you're taking blood thinners, consistency matters even more, because sudden increases can disrupt balance and interfere with the very collagen signaling you're trying to build. This is also where many people get impatient. They feel a small improvement and assume it's time to jump to the strongest options. That urge is understandable and dangerous, because this step is about alignment, not acceleration. Skip proper alignment and later activation fails to lock in. That's why so many bone health plans feel promising early on, then quietly stop working months later. They never stabilize the process at the midpoint. So pause here for a moment and recognize what this step really is. Up to now, you were preparing the internal environment and organizing the framework. From this point forward, your body is finally ready to respond. This is the checkpoint most people misunderstand. Stall here too long and momentum fades. Rush past it and the structure never stabilizes. You've come this far. Would you stop at the exact moment real bone rebuilding finally becomes possible? 2. Oranges, the activation phase. This is the moment where everything you've been preparing finally starts to move. Until now, the work has been mostly internal and localized, calming hidden damage, organizing collagen fibers, and correcting direction so your body knows what to rebuild and when to do it. Oranges don't build the collagen framework, and they don't finish bone repair. What they do is just as critical: they activate flow. They improve circulation and nutrient delivery to connective tissue, which is the exact point where collagen repair stops being isolated and becomes system-wide. Up to now, signals were forming quietly in the background. Here, they begin to travel, and that shift changes everything for bone health after 60. This matters far more than most people realize as they age. Collagen for bones is fragile when it's undersupplied. Even well-organized collagen weakens if oxygen, amino acids, and micronutrients can't reach it consistently. This is one of the most overlooked reasons bone rebuilding after 60 fails. Many older adults eat what looks like a perfect bone-healthy diet on paper. Adequate calcium, sufficient protein, vitamin D, magnesium, even supplements. Yet still experience stiffness, slower recovery, or a growing sense that movement feels less reliable than it used to. The problem isn't the food list, it's delivery. Without proper circulation and transport, repair signals stall long before minerals ever have a chance to lock into bone tissue. This is where many people misunderstand the role of fruit in natural bone health after 60. Oranges aren't here to add brute strength or create instant density. They're here to connect systems. They help link collagen repair with blood flow, oxygen supply, and nutrient movement so rebuilding stops happening in small, isolated pockets and starts happening everywhere it's needed. That systemic connection is what separates short-term improvement from lasting bone strength. This is also why whole oranges matter far more than juice, especially for older adults focused on sustainable, long-term bone health. Juice delivers sugar quickly and unevenly, creating sharp glucose spikes that can disrupt blood sugar balance, mineral handling, and collagen signaling. Those spikes may feel harmless in the moment, but over time they interfere with the steady internal rhythm aging connective tissue depends on. Whole oranges, by contrast, deliver vitamin C in a slower, more controlled way, paired with fiber that moderates absorption. That steady rhythm is exactly what older bones, joints, and connective tissue respond to best. It's not dramatic. It doesn't feel intense. It's predictable, and predictability is what aging biology trusts. If you're over 60 and managing reflux, digestive sensitivity, or using acid-reducing medications, timing becomes especially important at this stage. Pairing oranges with meals helps smooth digestion, reduce irritation, and improve nutrient uptake without overwhelming the system. This isn't about quantity or forcing results. One whole orange several times per week is enough to support this activation phase when the earlier steps have been done correctly. More does not mean faster. In fact, pushing too hard here can create imbalance and undo the coordination you've been carefully building. Consistency, not intensity, is what makes activation effective. This is also where many people begin to notice a subtle but meaningful shift. Recovery starts to feel less localized. Stiffness doesn't disappear overnight, but movement begins to feel more evenly supported across joints, tendons, and connective tissue. Signals no longer stall in one area while other tissues lag behind. This is what activation actually feels like. Not sudden strength, not dramatic change, but coordination. Repair messages finally reach where they're needed instead of stopping halfway and fading out. Here's the curiosity to hold on to. At this point, most people assume they've done enough. Preparation is complete. Organization is in place. Activation is happening. Everything feels ready. And yet, without one final signal, nothing truly locks in. Minerals may arrive, but they still won't stay. Stability remains temporary. Progress feels close, but incomplete. This is the stage where many bone health plans quietly stall. Not because they're wrong, but because they stop one step too soon. Activation without completion leads to short-lived improvement instead of lasting strength. That's why so many people say bone health gains come and go after 60 instead of building steadily over time. And that brings us to the final step, the one aging bones recognize most clearly after 60. The signal that turns movement into structure, preparation into stability, and activation into lasting bone strength. 1. Bone broth. The clear permission. Bone broth is not dramatic, and that's exactly why it works so reliably for bone health after 60. It doesn't force repair, it doesn't shock the system, and it doesn't rely on pressure, extremes, or overload. Instead, it delivers something aging. Bones still respond to immediately. Familiarity. Bone broth provides amino acids and collagen-building peptides the body recognizes as its own, sending a calm, unmistakable biological message. Rebuilding is allowed. Not later, not cautiously, now. This matters far more than most people realize as they age. After 60, bones don't respond well to louder signals or aggressive strategies. They don't rebuild simply because you push harder, add more supplements, or increase intensity. In fact, too much force often backfires, pushing the body deeper into maintenance mode. What aging bones still respond to are recognizable signals, messages that feel safe, expected, and biologically appropriate. Bone broth delivers exactly that kind of signal, which is why it plays such a unique role in natural bone rebuilding. By the time you reach this step in the countdown, everything else is already in place. The internal environment has been prepared. Collagen fibers have been protected and organized. Direction has been corrected. Activation has begun. What bone broth does is give the body permission to finish the job. It tells your system that repair is no longer a risk, no longer temporary, and no longer something to delay. This is why collagen for bones finally stabilizes here instead of continuing to cycle in and out of partial repair. Many people misunderstand this step and assume bone broth works because it is strong or rich. That's not the reason. Bone broth works because it feels biologically familiar. After 60, the body becomes cautious with energy and resources. It doesn't invest in rebuilding unless it feels confident the structure will hold. Bone broth sends that confidence signal. It reassures the body that the framework is ready, the conditions are safe, and repair can proceed without risk. Warm, simple servings a few times per week are enough, because this step is about communication, not volume. More broth does not mean faster results. Larger amounts don't amplify the signal, they often dilute it. Aging biology responds best to clarity, not excess. A consistent, recognizable input tells the body it's safe to invest energy into rebuilding instead of conserving resources. That shift, from conservation to repair, is a defining moment in bone rebuilding after 60. Bone broth also supports the flexible collagen framework minerals depend on. Without that framework, calcium and other minerals arrive but fail to anchor properly. They drift, scatter, or are redirected elsewhere in the body. With a stable collagen scaffold in place, minerals finally have somewhere to settle. This is the difference between temporary density and lasting strength. It's not about hardness alone. It's about structure that can hold under real-life movement, balance, and pressure. This is why so many people feel confused when bone scans look okay, but fractures still happen. Density without structure is unreliable. Bone broth supports the internal architecture that gives density meaning. It helps transform minerals from something that merely exists into something that actually protects. If you have kidney concerns, are sensitive to sodium, or follow a sodium-restricted plan, preparation method and portion size matter. Homemade or low-sodium options allow you to control intake while still delivering the signal your body needs. The principle stays the same regardless of form. Bone broth works because it speaks the body's language, not because it overwhelms it. The result is quiet stability, not a sudden surge of strength, not dramatic change overnight, but a noticeable shift in how the body holds together. Movement feels more supported. Recovery feels steadier. Balance feels less fragile. Bones stop feeling like they're constantly at risk during ordinary life. This is what lasting bone health feels like after 60, subtle, consistent, and reliable. And this is the reward moment most people miss. Not because the foods are wrong, but because the order is wrong. Activation without permission fails. Permission without preparation doesn't hold. Preparation without direction never progresses. Each step depends on the one before it. That's why so many people say they tried everything and still didn't see results. They skipped the sequence that bones actually recognize. This is why timing matters for rebuilding bone strength. This is why sequence matters for collagen formation and mineral absorption. And after everything you've heard, one truth becomes unavoidable. This is why order matters. If you've been feeling uneasy about your bones or noticed changes in your strength after 60, you're not alone. Many older adults feel the same way, even if they don't talk about it. The good news is this: your body can still rebuild and adapt later in life when it receives the right signals, especially those that support collagen for bones and overall bone health after 60. That realization alone can change how hopeful and empowered this journey feels. Take a moment to connect with others here. Share in the comments how old you are and what health goal matters most to you right now. You may be surprised how many people are walking a similar path towards stronger bones and better stability. Your story could be exactly what another senior needs to hear today. Before applying anything you've heard, always check with your doctor before making major diet changes, especially if you're over 60 or taking medications. Safety comes first. Remember, your body still has a remarkable ability to rebuild bone strength and adapt when you support it gently, patiently, and consistently. If this video helped you feel more confident or informed about natural bone support and collagen-rich foods, please like it and share it with someone who could use a little reassurance today.